drug test. I've never heard I've never heard anybody admitting to taking drugs before they take a drug test. I've never heard of that before. Should we admire being honest up front, or should we be for smoking weed before a drug test that he knew was coming up?
The more that we dig into the life of Adrian Peterson, kind of like, it's like those, whatever, I wasn't an art history major, but, whatever those portraits are where, like from far away they look nice, and the closer you get, the more disfigured they are and the uglier they are. It's kind of like that with Adrian Peterson. The closer we get, the more we dive or delve into his, personal life, the more suspect it becomes, and the more questions are raised. I hadn't heard that about the drug testing, but needless to say, after everything that's taken place with him over the last couple months, I'm not all that shocked.
It surprises me. It surprises me that it surprises other people about his charity, because we've known this for years, that athletes put up these charities to make money. They're not making money. Mm-hmm. They're not making money to donate. I mean, yeah, they donate a portion of it, but I saw somewhere, maybe it was outside the lines, that A-Rod's didn't give more than like 10%. I could be off on those. No, a good portion of it went into A-Rod's pockets, or his. That's my theory. Is these charities are to support these guys as posses. That's it.
I'll put it like this. It's not necessarily just athletes. They're basically athletes are now playing the rich man's game. You know what I mean? I'm not accusing everybody that is, comes from a wealthy background, that, supposedly has charities. I'm not accusing them of doing that, but it's probably far more common, than any of us would like to imagine. Being as an individual, obviously, outside of working for Basketball Insiders, I also work for a nonprofit organization. It kind of disgusts me when I hear these things, but I'm not shocked. I'm not stunned by it.
I mean, you just look. I mean, this may sound really stupid, but there was like that thing on outside into athletes and where their money goes from their charities. And then I started watching that show, Chloe and Lamar, that was on E! And I heard a story on there that 30 people on payroll. Now, whatever he's paying them or whatever, I don't care. Maybe he's not paying them, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to hang out with him. But if he has a charity, maybe he can pay them whatever he wants, because that charity is funding these people to keep up their lifestyle, to be friends with him. And that's really pathetic. That might be the most pathetic thing on the face of the earth.
I don't know if it's the most, but it's certainly up there. It's a pretty disgusting thing. It's a pretty disgusting habit. It just is. There really isn't that much to add to that, other than, if you're the type of individual that does that, sorry, I don't know what to say for you.
I can't say I would necessarily go down that path of, having funding a charity to fund my friendships. I wouldn't do that. But I can't really blame, everybody makes fun of these guys for having posses and, having these, like that still hang out with their friends, they keep it real. I can't blame them for doing that. I would probably do the same exact thing, not pay, pay all the bills for my friends. But, if I could have my, 5 best friends from high school while I was playing in the NBA live with me, for the first 5 or 6 years of my NBA career, that'd make, have good times, get women over to the mansion, whatnot. I can't blame those guys.
Yeah, on its face, I have no problem whatsoever with it. Hey, look, I was a huge fan of the show Entourage, for many of the same reasons, that many fans were. That is something that it makes total sense. You don't have the guys that you came up around. You don't necessarily have to learn learn the tricks on them. You kind of know where you stand. So outside of funding that with charity money, I'm 100% okay with it because like you, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, it's I don't know and the people that rip on it and make fun of it are old white guys that didn't have that opportunity. And I mean, the reason they make fun of it is because these guys wind up broke on the payroll a little too long.
Yeah, I mean, and that obviously could turn into a whole different discussion about the social, like the implications of the socioeconomic issues, and the history and all of that. I won't go down that stretch, on your sports show, but I have noticed that those that complain about it or those that make the most light of it are generally probably not from the same type of background.
Well, as all, we have we get together. We talk a lot of NBA. I bet we could put together a show, a marathon show for charity, for Adrian Peterson's charity, talking about NBA if we wanted to. But we'll stick to about an hour for this one. NBA preseason. We're getting going here. Got the Lakers. I'm liking what it's not a good team by any means, but this is a fun team to watch. Just like last year, I had fun watching that team with, Nick Young, Xavier Henry. I mean, there was a different hero every night. I feel like we're going to get that this year. And then you mix in two veterans like Kobe, and I think this could be a fun team to watch.
I think it can be. I agree with you in terms of, I'll tell you right now. As an outside observer, it may have been fun. It was pretty tough to cover that 27-55 season last year because to a certain degree, once you're 20 games under 500, there's really not that much that's coming out of those interviews, those locker room interviews. So that was a bit tedious. But I will say, some of those characters like Nick Young, like some of the younger guys, Wesley Johnson, Jody Meeks last year. Obviously, he's with Detroit this year. That was fun, and I agree with you. They're not going to be a great team, but I actually think this is a team, if healthy, that's the caveat to all of this, that can be at least competitive on most nights. And honestly, as a fan, during a rebuilding period, at a time when a long-time Laker legend and NBA legend, Kobe Bryant is kind of in his swan song type situation, scenario where it's real more than likely his last couple seasons. That's really all you can ask for. Be competitive on a nightly basis. Give maximum effort, and entertain the folks. And I do think that this team will do that.
For Lakers fans, might not be as fun to watch because they're used to championships, at least 5 in most of these people's lifetime. But you look at, I've never really had fun watching the Lakers. The team I had fun watching with the Lakers, Shaq, with Kobe, with Eddie Jones, Nick Van Eck, Eldon Campbell. I mean, it was a young team and it was kind of just a bunch of pieces thrown together. You got kind of a similar thing going here. Granted, you don't have, 2 future stars. You can't see 2 future stars out of this group right now. I mean, Nick Young, the best player out of this group, and he's not going to be a superstar, but it's along those lines of, a fun team. This is about as much fun as I'll have watching the Lakers since that team.
Yeah, and it's funny, like even the year prior to, Shaq and Kobe joining that team, the 95 team that, if I'm not mistaken, they lost to the Spurs in the playoffs. That was even a fun team to watch, but because that team was centered around, remember Nick Van Exel, Nick the Quick, you had Eddie Jones, as you mentioned there. Vlade was still on that team, obviously prior to Kobe, Kobe's arrival. And I guess I can see some similarities because, like the reality is while there may be some fans that want the world, the realistic fans, the expectations are significantly lower, than as you mentioned, some Lakers fans are accustomed to. So if you go, I'm of the opinion that, like if you're a Lakers fan or you're a fan of a team like these Lakers, that is in a similar situation like these Lakers are currently in, as long as as long as you have realistic expectations, you curb your enthusiasm a little bit in terms of talking about playoffs, which I've seen some people still are already jumping the gun after a game and a quarter of preseason basketball. If you can keep things into perspective, honestly, that this is going to be one of those fun teams to watch.
Another team that so far this preseason I've had fun watching is the Pistons. I don't think this is this a team that's going to win the finals. No, but this is a team that last year massively underachieved, just based on the names they had on the roster and the money they paid to Brandon Jennings and Josh Smith. But I look at this, just by watching them in the preseason, I like what Stan Van is doing there. You got nice pieces. He's not going to play many minutes, but I like guys like Tony Mitchell out of North Texas, and Brandon Jennings. I think less is more with him. I think he needs, if he had they might need to bring in another veteran, but if he has like a sixth man type role or whatever he does, it needs to be a lesser role than, what they expect from him, because I don't think he's not a world beater. He's not, the guy that's going to lead you to the promised land. He needs to be that second guy out of the backcourt. And then you guys got Drummond, Monroe, Just Smith. I think this is a nice team. I think they could possibly make a run at the second round in the Eastern Conference. Am I out of bounds on that?
Well, I wouldn't say you're out of bounds, because the reality is, you're right. There's a lot of talented players on that roster. I question when Joe Dumars, obviously he's no longer there, but I question when he put the team together, how the parts would fit. And as you mentioned, clearly they didn't fit last year, based upon how much they underachieved. But I also agree, it doesn't need to be the Brandon Jennings show, and quite frankly, it's not going to be. Stan Van Gundy wasn't brought in there in order to center the team around, like a shoot first, point guard. I personally like Brandon Jennings, but the reality is, he is not that guy. This team, the offense, if you're going to make Andre Drummond your franchise guy, you have to continue to develop him. We saw a little bit of him, playing with Team USA this summer, but obviously, we know what he can do. But you need to continue to develop his offensive game. You need to make him an established player, this season as we move forward. And obviously that simply wasn't going to happen, how things were constructed last year and how things were played last year. Now with Stan Van there, expect, much like how he did with Dwight Howard, he will feature him. They will probably, especially since he went on and picked up some other shooters. Like I said, he picked up Jody Meeks. You probably will eventually see at some point, the 4 out, 1 in sets. I have not caught any of their preseason action, so I can't speak to it, as of yet. But I fully expect by mid-season, we will probably all be saying like, "Wow, this is a different Andre Drummond." Not that we didn't have these expectations, but I kind of think it's going to come together pretty quickly for him, with Stan Van.
What do you think as far as Stan Van goes? I think he's a coach that gets far more criticism than he deserves. And it all leads back to Shaq, calling him the master of panic. And it just put a bad label on him. I don't think, the perception is that he's a bad coach. I don't get that out of Stan Van Gundy. I mean, his teams are never terrible. He's always, usually in the top half of the Eastern Conference. Be that what it may, but his teams are always respectable. He never has a team that's just completely out of contention.
Yeah, let's be real about it. That may be the going saying around like Twitter and other or various other forms of social media. But Stan Van Gundy, if you ask anybody that actually pays attention to the game of basketball, they know that he's not a quote unquote bad coach. He's not. He may not, his, philosophies may not, completely vibe with, someone's preferred, preferred style of play. But you're right. Generally his teams are very good defensively. They rebound well. They're going to shoot a lot of 3-pointers. That's kind of what he does. Like, he'll feature the big man and surround them with guys that are shooters as well as slashers. They'll get out in transition, when the opportunity presents itself. So yeah, I'm not sure who these individuals are that are, questioning Stan Van Gundy